Hello and welcome. My name is Rebecca King and I'm one of the brain changers from Moonbeam Monday Training and Coaching. And I want to thank you for joining us at today's Lunch and Learn. It's all about unlocking the power of hardwiring happiness. So I'm just going to start with a very short introduction, a little bit about me if you're new to Moonbeam Monday. All right, so this is just a little bit about me. Of course, I am a coach, so I help people eliminate chronic anxiety and take control of their life to really get what they want. And I do that by teaching them how to retrain their brain. And we do this using neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, and hypnotherapy. So that's what you can find me doing most of the time, most of the days of the week. But then, of course, there is the personal side to me as well. I am a cyclist. I absolutely love cycling. I took it up a few years ago after participating in a charity ride, and it's really become a big part of my life, not only for fitness, but just for fun. It's a bit of a social aspect for me, but it's become something that not just that I have to do to keep fit, but something that I really enjoy doing. I've just actually come back from New Zealand a couple of weeks ago, taking on another charity ride, raising money for the Sammy D Foundation. And so, big part of my life. And then, of course, on the end, you can see I am a dog mum. My two dogs are like my children, and I make no apologies for that. And as it says there on the screen, they're Ruby and Winnie. And thanks to them, my favorite color is dog hair. I cannot get out of the house without being covered in dog hair, but they are a massive part of my life. So that's just a little bit about me, both personally and professionally. And then, of course, I have this business, Moonbeam Monday Training and Coaching. My business partner is Yvonne, who you may be able to see on the screen there. Yvonne also happens to be my mum. So we went into business together almost 2 years ago to the day, actually, and we started Moonbeam Monday Training and Coaching, both as NLP master practitioners. And we did that because our mission really is to spark a revolution in your thoughts, words, and actions. So we want people to think differently. We know that the way that we think has a massive impact on the words that we use, the habits that we form, and ultimately it becomes our destiny. It's that Gandhi quote, if you've heard it. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions, etc. So we really want to help people learn how to think differently, because when you think differently, you can change your mind. And of course, when you change your mind, you can change your life. You can completely transform it. So that's just a little bit about us at Moonbeam Monday. And of course, today in this video, we are covering all about how to hardwire happiness in your brain. So it's about understanding how our brains are wired for negativity and how to rewire them for positivity or for happiness. You're going to be learning some practical strategies to boost your resilience and bounce back from adversity. And then we're going to be exploring the art of savouring positive experiences to amplify your happiness. Now, what we're talking about today, I didn't come up with the term hardwiring happiness. This isn't my thing. Actually, we're talking a lot about the information in this book, Hardwiring Happiness by Rick Hanson. Now, I've got two pictures up there because one is the cover of his hard copy book and one is the cover of his Audible book. But essentially, it's a book about the science of happiness and how to create lasting changes in the brain. Because we all know how to make changes, but it's that word lasting that is the important word there. And of course, this is all backed by the latest research in neuroscience. Now, it's fascinating because in the past, talking about, positivity and happiness, and even a lot of what we do with NLP, it's been dismissed and thought of by a lot of people as a bit woo-woo. But actually, it is backed by science. And if you want more information about that, of course, we're only touching the tip of the iceberg today. But I really encourage you to get this book and have a listen or have a read. That's what I love about this, is it's so logical once you know it, once you understand how your brain works, and it is all backed by science. So why are we talking about this today? Well, it's because there's so many people in the world who are unhappy. Or they may not even be, at the bottom end of the scale unhappy. They may just feel a bit meh. That's the best word I can think of to describe it. Now, I found this statistic. I've actually turned this statistic around, because what the stat said is that 8 out of 10 people, or 8 out of 10 Australians, consider themselves happy. So that leaves 2 out of 10 people. Now, it's not necessarily to say that they're unhappy, but they're not classing themselves as happy. Now, that's 20% of the Australian population, which is over 5 million people. Or if you put that into context, I think that's around the same population as Melbourne, a whole capital city. So there's a lot of people out there feeling pretty meh or unhappy, and they don't know why. And the reasons are varied. I know that COVID had a lot to do with this. It played a large part, but it's not just the obvious things that you might think that make us feel unhappy or less than happy. It's things that might be outside of your control. I know that when things change, especially last minute and you're not prepared for it, it makes people feel quite uncertain. Things like holding grudges. If you have had an issue in a family scenario, perhaps at some stage in your life, and you've been holding on to this grudge, this perpetuates this feeling of negativity and, of course, can stick with you and create unhappiness. Leading an unhealthy lifestyle. We all know that eating well and exercise and getting good sleep, all of those types of things, they are the pillars, the foundations to a good life, and they create or help create happiness, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. So leading an unhealthy lifestyle can make you feel pretty meh. Then there's things like seeking approval of others, always needing somebody else's buy-in, criticizing others. If we spend a lot of time judging other people, criticizing other people, that again perpetuates negativity, and negativity can bring on that feeling of unhappiness. Then, of course, maybe it's that you're not achieving the goals that you've set, or maybe you haven't even set any goals, and so you're sort of floating through. I said at the beginning, a lot of us don't even understand why we're feeling unhappy or why we've got that feeling of meh. And sometimes because we're not either setting ourselves goals or we're not actually achieving them. Being unclear on your purpose. Why do you actually get up in the morning? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you excited? If you're unclear on your general purpose in life, or even your purpose in your job, any area of your life, then you're not going to feel as happy as you possibly can. And also it could be focusing on material success. So these are just a few that I came up with. Some of those perhaps less obvious things. They're not bad experiences perhaps that you've had that you might realize, yes, of course, they might make me feel unhappy. But it's all these little things that culminate. And so what happens is that most people, they try to change their environment, or they try to learn new skills, or they might even try to change their behavior. And this might work for a little while, but then ultimately they're still not entirely happy. And when this is the case, there is, of course, work to do, to find out what the root cause is and address it, because there will be maybe one thing, maybe two things specifically that need to be identified and addressed. But today, what I want to share with you is that it's all about the small choices that are all around us that we can make to live a happy, fulfilled, and resilient life. But firstly, I want to share something with you that is going to blow your mind. Guess what? your brain is not actually designed to be happy. Okay, so humans are not designed to be happy or even content. We are designed to primarily survive and reproduce like every other creature. And a state of contentment is actually discouraged by nature because it would lower our guard against possible threats to our survival. But unlike any other species, our brain has actually evolved. So the primate part of our brain, which is the human part of our brain, places meaning around everything. And that's different to any other mammal. Okay, we're the only species that places meaning around things. So we have this need to be happy, to be satisfied, to be content. That's why we're always striving for it. But our brain actually wasn't designed for that. However, you can overcome your negativity bias and how you focus on and exaggerate negative events, which we all tend to do. I'm sure you're thinking about this now and realizing that, yes, a lot of the time my brain goes straight to the negative. But you can overcome this by relishing, extending, and prioritizing the positive things in your life to become happier. And yes, that's me there, being happy. That was at one of our events earlier in the year, I think. So through conscious effort, and I say conscious because if any of you watching this have been to or watched our Mind Shift Mastery event, you'll know all about the conscious versus the unconscious mind. You will know that approximately 95% of our mind is unconscious as opposed to conscious. There's a lot going on in the background without us even thinking about it. And so we do need to become conscious. We have to make a conscious effort, and yes, it does take effort, to rewire our brain. But we can do that and become more resilient, more joyful, more positive. And there's actually just a few very, very simple things that you can do each day that uses the hidden power of everyday experiences to build new neural pathways full of happiness, full of love, joy, and positivity. And when you do this, you learn to see through the lies that your brain tells you, because that is what is happening. Your brain is telling you stories all day. And in just minutes, you can literally change your brain and eventually transform your life to become happier and calmer. So while we once thought that humans were unable to form new neural pathways as they reached maturity, the study of neuroscience has actually proved otherwise. So the question is, how do we override our basic instinct to focus on the negative and instead focus on the positive to embrace more happiness in our life? It's a big question, but I've got 6 things that I'm going to share with you today that are going to help you make this change. Number 1, it's about accepting that growth is good. So personal growth is all about becoming aware of the self in its entirety and then taking the steps to address behaviors, attitudes, values, actions, and habits that you wish to change. So despite the discomfort or the pain that you might encounter through personal growth, there are many reasons to pursue it, of course, and I'm sure you're aware of a lot of the benefits. But even small doses of personal growth can bring so many benefits, like learning to better control your emotions, overcome negative thoughts, overcome procrastination, find peace with the things that you don't have control over, feel less anxiety, have better relationships. Like the benefits are endless, okay, of personal growth. So really, step 1 in hardwiring happiness is to accept that growth is good. Number 2 is all about understanding how your brain actually works. Now, Our brain, as I mentioned earlier, has a negativity bias. And by that, I mean that it tends to pay more attention to negative experiences and emotions than the positive ones. So take a moment to think about your school days. When you think about the time that you spent at school, do you automatically think of, the good times that you had with your friends, or the lunch times you spent, kicking a ball on the oval? Or do you think about the time that you were bullied or hurt, or the times you got into trouble, or perhaps that first time that you got an F on a test? It's likely that you think about the latter. You think about the negative experiences that you had at school, because the tendency to disproportionately focus on the negative is built into us. It is a remnant from when the most negative things could kill you, from millions of years ago. Okay, so today, most of the threats that we have, because we lead pretty easygoing lives, in all honesty, but most threats won't kill you. But our brain does not know that. It's still trying to keep you safe and comfortable. And one of the ways that it does that is to show you the worst case scenario, or to focus on the negative thing. And the reason you react stronger to bad things is that you might have a sad amygdala. Now, the amygdala is that part of your brain that is responsible for processing emotions. So a happy amygdala will stimulate your nucleus, your nucleus accumbens, and that's the goal-fulfilling part of your brain that sparks motivation, ambition, and optimism. So a sad amygdala is actually, it will instead base your actions more on fear by releasing cortisol, adrenaline, and other stress-inducing hormones, making you feel rather anxious and worried. So most of us actually have a sad amygdala. But the good news is it's not set in stone, it can be changed. And that's what we do with our clients in our one-on-one coaching, in our group training, in our programs. We help people literally change their brain. Now, your brain never stops growing. I don't mean growing in size, but evolving, which means that it is never too late to change the structure. And by exposing it to more positive experiences and making a conscious effort to do so on a regular basis, you can tone down that sad amygdala and even turn it into a happy one. So, over time, we experience more and more things in our life. We create more and more memories, all of which are stored in your unconscious mind, every single one of them. You're not consciously going to remember everything that you've ever experienced in your life, but trust me, those memories are there in your unconscious mind. Then every time that you experience something, your mind filters the information. So again, if you remember the Mind Shift Mastery webinar that you might have watched, every time we experience something, that information comes into our brain, and we can't possibly handle all of that information that's coming into our brain. So our brain tries to do us a favor, and it filters the information. And so what happens is that creates a state of mind, and then it ultimately creates a behavior, or determines a behavior, so the way that we react to something. And over your life, if you're happy with the status quo, if you've made no particular effort to see the positive things that the world has to offer, then your tendency may simply to see the negative. So you might be one of these people that describes yourself, or other people describe you, as a glass half empty person, or a worst case scenario person. So you're the person who sees the worst in everything, or the worst case scenario. Now, some people might see this as a good thing because it prepares them for the worst and it doesn't get their hopes up too much, so they can't be disappointed. But that mindset comes from fear. Okay, so perhaps, you've either done this yourself or you've witnessed this in other people, but, I've applied for this job, or we've put an offer in on this house, or I'm up for this award, but I'm not getting my hopes up because I don't want to be disappointed. Now, this is really important to know, because what you may not know is that your brain doesn't differentiate between reality and fantasy. What it means is that what you tell your brain, it will believe. So if you tell your brain that it can't or shouldn't hope for something, or hope for more, then your brain will find evidence to support that. And on the other hand, if you tell your brain, that it can achieve something, that it can hope for something, it will find evidence to support that as well. And, a lot of you might be familiar with manifesting. That's why manifesting is so popular. It's quite incredible what you can achieve when you think positively, when you're happier, when you manifest good things, rather than looking at the worst case scenario or the what if situation. So if you're that person, if you're that glass half empty person, you may never be disappointed, but you're never going to thrive either. And something else to remember here is that your brain is plastic. You might have heard of neuroplasticity. And what I mean by that is that you're able to make changes and form new neural pathways well into old age, which I alluded to earlier. So we do have that ability. At one point, it wasn't thought that we could do that. It was thought that when we reached maturity, a certain level of maturity, that our brain stopped forming these new neural pathways. But we now know this as a fact, that that's not true. We can continue to learn. We can continue to develop. We can create new habits well into our older age. That is because our brain is plastic. It can change. It can evolve. So, that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It is completely untrue. You can teach an old dog new tricks, but of course there is a caveat with that. That dog has to want to learn those new tricks. So it is entirely possible to learn new things, but you have to want to learn them as well. So knowing this, understanding how your brain works, you know for sure now that you can rewire your brain and focus on more positive experiences. And of course, like anything, when you practice and when you do this consistently, it eventually becomes a habit, and you do this without even having to think. So when you do the things that we're going to move on to shortly to increase positivity and increase happiness in your life, you can create a habit of feeling happier, of thinking happier thoughts. So number 3, focus on the positive experiences. So I wanted to start with giving you a little bit of a lesson on how your brain works, because this isn't just about, if you think positively, you'll be happier. That is true, but now you understand why, and you understand how that works. So this next point, to counteract that negativity bias, we can focus on positive experiences and emotions and give them time to really sink in and be fully experienced in the brain. So let's use an example here. Let's say we've experienced 10 things in the day. 5 of them are neutral, 4 of them are happy, and 1 of them, or positive, and 1 of them is negative. Which one do you go to bed thinking about? It's the negative one, isn't it? Usually. We usually focus on that negative one. It's the one that stops us from going to sleep. It keeps us up at night. It wakes us up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We worry about it. And when that happens, when we actually go to bed thinking about something negative, it has a huge impact. It can actually impact our quality of sleep. We can wake up in a crabby mood or a negative mood. So conversely, when we go to bed thinking about those positive things, perhaps those 4 positive things that happen in the day, that obviously can have an impact on our sleep. We might get to sleep better. We might have a more restful, peaceful sleep, more pleasant dreams. And we're likely to wake up in a more positive frame of mind. So that's just one benefit of doing this, because I'm guessing that those of you watching, there's quite a number of you who have some issues with sleep. Perhaps you're not sleeping well, or you're not waking up feeling terrific. Maybe there's something in that. You know, what are you doing before bed? What are you thinking about? What's your routine? Now, there's a few different ways to begin focusing on these positive experiences and really embedding them in your brain. And in this book, Hardwiring Happiness, Rick talks about simply reminding yourself of the good things in your life more often. So, for example, you can start to use what he calls a good year box. Now, what that is, it's pretty plain and simple. You may have even done it yourself in your life. It's a wonderful thing to do with kids, but it's not just for kids, it's for adults as well. At the end of each day, take a moment, you might even already be in bed, but take a moment to think about those positive things that have happened to you throughout the day, those good experiences, and write at least one of them down on a piece of paper and read it, immerse yourself in it, remember it, and then pop it in a box or a jar or, you know, whatever you want to put it in, a keepsake box. And then the next night and the next night and the next night, do the same thing. You'll actually, after a year, you'll actually end up with a box of 365 good experiences to look back on. But what you're also doing at the time is reminding yourself of these good events, of these positive experiences. And you can revisit them anytime you want, anytime you need a little bit of a pick-me-up, but also as part of this exercise of hardwiring happiness, hardwiring positivity into your brain. And spend time in that memory. You know, we all love recalling happy memories. So why wouldn't you want to spend time doing this? You know, the more you do it, the happier you will feel. Remember what I said before, your brain believes what you tell it. So if you tell it happy thoughts, positive thoughts, it will find more evidence to support the fact that you are happy. And like anything you do, as I said, do it often and it will eventually become a habit. And some of those positive memories, like it's super easy. Have a think about it now to get you started. You know, think about a beautiful walk you went on the beach or a lovely sunset that you saw. Think about a favorite holiday or a favorite meal. Or even just look around your environment and consider these amazing amount of mini miracles around. You know, I love flowers. I love roses. Pink roses are my favorite. And when I walk my dogs around my neighborhood, there's actually just about every yard down the street near me has roses in their garden. And I love just walking down that road and looking at all the different roses in the yards, especially the pink ones. And I'll take the time to look at the rose and how it's formed. I think it's a miracle the way that they're so beautifully formed, and I'll drink in the perfume that they have. That to me is a mini miracle. So that's a really happy moment for me, a really happy memory for me. You could even look at something in your office like your laptop. You know, think about 50 years ago. Yeah, 50 years ago. The laptop, I don't know if it even existed, but a computer, like the laptop can do the job. Yeah, Mum's shaking her head. The laptop can do the job of probably what it took a company of 50 people to do 50 years ago. You know, we can create incredible graphics and images. We can type out whole stories on our laptop. Sorry, my eyes are going all funny. It's very bright. We can do something like this. We can have a webinar. I can talk to you in real time. That is a mini miracle. Actually, it's not so mini. That is quite the accomplishment. So even just thinking about that and focusing on that as a positive experience could be something that you can start doing. The list is really endless. rewiring your brain does not have to be complicated. It can be as simple as digging out one happy memory at a time. And so that's the third step, is focusing on the positive experiences. Next is about cultivating gratitude, kindness, and compassion, and showing more generosity, which can help create lasting changes in the brain. And this makes it easier to experience positive emotions and thoughts. So your brain's reward center will actually fire more often if you're generous. Did you know that? So this doesn't necessarily have to revolve around giving tangible gifts, but that is one example. So it can start there. You know, if this is something that you like doing or that you're able to do, you don't, you know, we often all give gifts at Christmas time or on birthdays, but don't let it stop there. You know, find a random time to give a gift to someone. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It could be a flower from your garden. You know, it could be baking some biscuits and taking it to someone. Being generous, or even using acts of kindness, you know, small things, opening the door for someone, holding the lift for someone, all of these little random acts of kindness. We see it all over social media these days. Being generous, or donate to an organisation that you're really passionate about once in a while, or do what I did, take part in a fundraiser. There is no limit of how generous you can be. You could even just offer to help your neighbour in the garden, okay? And it creates a shared moment of happiness as well. And anyone who has read Hugh van Cuylenberg's book, The Resilience Project, knows the power of gratitude. And all of these things that we're talking about, all of these things that you can do, they are building resilience. Because when you think more positively, when you are happier in your life, you are more resilient when bad things happen. Because make no mistake, they are going to happen. Bad things do happen. We can't avoid that. But it's how we respond and how we react to those things. And the more of these things that you do, the more positivity, the more happiness you have in your life, the more resilience you're going to build and be able to bounce back from these things. So if you've read The Resilience Project or you've seen Hugh van Cuylenberg present, you'll know the power of gratitude. And when you're being grateful, it is impossible to feel negative. You feel good. So there are a couple of simple ways to show more gratitude. And one of them is simply getting into the habit of saying thank you and you're welcome. I know that sounds really simple, like, well, of course, Beck, why wouldn't I say thank you when someone does something for me or says something nice? You'd be surprised. I've even witnessed it in the last couple of weeks where someone hasn't said thank you. And then when somebody says thank you, say you're welcome. It's just a beautiful thing to say. It makes you feel better. And that's what we're all about. We're all about creating more happiness and hardwiring it. And a beautifully simple exercise that you can do at the end of each day is to take a few moments and record these statements. So there's 3 of them. Today I did this thing and it made me happy. Today I did this other thing and it made someone else happy. Because that's a cool thing, right? To make somebody else happy. And today I am most grateful for this thing. So 3 very simple but powerful statements. And you're right, great idea. These experiences may otherwise be forgotten. I think you said that a bit earlier. Thanks, Yvonne. Yeah, it's a great idea to record these things because sometimes they're just gone. So that is step 4, cultivating more gratitude, kindness, compassion, and gratitude. I think I said gratitude, sorry, generosity. Gratitude, kindness, compassion, and generosity. So we're on the home stretch. Number 5, practice mindfulness and move. So mindful practices like meditation, along with physical activity and exercise, can help boost happiness and overall well-being. So if you find yourself overwhelmed by thoughts, this in itself can create negativity because it can lead to a feeling of anxiety. Now, simply taking the time out to meditate or sit quietly or do some simple breathing can calm you and create space. Now, if the thought of meditation right now makes you think, oh, I can't meditate, I'm so bad at meditating because I can't switch my mind off, then this is aimed at you. You, more than anyone, need to take time out to just be, to meditate, to breathe. Honestly, if you cannot find 10 minutes in your day to just be, to do this, or even to help cultivate these happy thoughts, then it's time to reevaluate what's most important in your life. And you can begin that process simply by carving out 10 minutes a day. As the proverb says, I think it's a Chinese proverb, says something like, meditate each day for 20 minutes. Unless you don't have 20 minutes, then meditate for an hour. It's basically saying if you can't find 20 minutes to meditate each day out of 24 hours in a day, then you're the person that needs to find more than that. And you put a note in here about, we tend to think that happiness results from attaining big ticket things. This shows how what we consider to be smaller things bring us just as much happiness. Absolutely. I think that's a really important point. We set ourselves, huge goals, life goals, oh, when I buy a house, I'll be happy. When I lose 20 kilos, I'll be happy. When I have this much money in my bank account, I'll be happy. And hopefully those things do contribute to your happiness. But do you want to wait to be happy? Or do you want to be happy now? I know what the answer is for me. I want to be happy now. I love feeling positive. I love feeling happy. And as I said, it could be something as simple as that rose that I just described before. Even just thinking about that now makes me feel happier. The artwork on my wall that I'm looking at over to my left, it makes me feel happy because it's colourful and it's bright and I love art. So I think that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that. It's the small things and the small choices that we can make that can bring just as much happiness as those big ticket items. So we're talking about mindfulness and moving. Now, I say move. I prefer to use the word movement rather than exercise because for a lot of people, that word exercise brings up negative feelings, like it's a negative connotation. So I prefer to use the word move. So we all know that physical exercise or movement brings endorphins, right? It creates endorphins. And endorphins are those feel-good hormones. And they're actually our body's natural pain reliever. So as well as helping relieve pain, they reduce stress, they increase our overall well-being, and they simply make us feel good. So I think we've probably all experienced when we could be in a bit of a funk, we can be feeling a bit down and out. If we go and move, whether it be going to the gym to do a workout or going for a bike ride or simply going for a walk around the block or in the park, maybe even doing some gardening, our body releases those endorphins and it can lift our mood. It can make us feel better. So if you are working on thinking more positive thoughts, if this is something that you want to do, you want to be more positive and be happier, then have a think. Ask yourself, how much do I move throughout the day? Am I stuck at a desk a lot of the day and my only movement is to get up and go to the kitchen and get a coffee and sit back down? If that's the case, look at some ways that you can bring more movement into your life. It could be as simple as walking around the block, doing a few stretches, going to a yoga class, it could be going for a bike ride. It could be getting in the garden, for half an hour when you get home. It doesn't have to be a gym workout, but movement is going to, get things going, and it's going to increase your overall well-being and feeling of positivity. And combined with everything else that we're talking about, this is going to help you create a more positive outlook. So then we have number 6. Okay, lastly, it's important to be aware of and recognize negative thoughts and beliefs, and to actively work to challenge and reframe them in a positive light. So, as I said before, no matter how positive and happy we are all going to get negative thoughts, or bad things are going to happen from time to time. Okay, that's life. But the difference in the people who have hardwired happiness is that they don't see these negative thoughts as the end of the world. In fact, they see them as an opportunity to grow. And that takes us very nicely all the way back to the first step, except that growth is good. So to become aware of these negative thoughts and beliefs, start with noticing anytime you hear yourself saying something like, I can't do that. Or when you're making an excuse for why you're avoiding something. Or listen to those not so nice things that you say to yourself. We can all be pretty nasty to ourselves. We can say some pretty crappy things. So take a note of it. Don't let them just be flyby thoughts and, fly to the back of your mind and your unconscious mind, because they will stay there. Grab onto them and take this as an opportunity, because when you're aware of it, you have that opportunity to think about what you want to think or believe instead. And then write that down. This is called a reframe. It's not enough to know what you don't want, though you need to know what you want instead, so you can begin replacing that negative thought or that negative belief with the new one. Now, again, those of you who have been to Mindshift Mastery, you know that we form we take on our beliefs at a very young age. And they're well embedded in your unconscious mind. And it's not as simple as just making a conscious decision to believe that something is new, believe something new. If it's too far removed from your current reality, your unconscious mind will simply say, nah, I'm not having any of that. You may need to do some deep work on this and to shift a limiting belief. And that's what we do in individual coaching. We help you bypass your conscious mind, the critical faculty that is your conscious mind, and communicate directly with your unconscious mind. And if that's something that you want to do, I'm going to tell you shortly how you can work with me. But in the meantime, you can simply begin by capturing these negative thoughts and beliefs and decide what you want to think or believe instead, and take time to sit in that new negative thought or belief and begin embedding it. So there you have it. I'm just going to stop sharing. So there you have it. That's a quick tutorial on how to hardwire happiness with those 6 steps. So begin these 6 things and you will start to notice a difference. So while thinking positively has had a lot to do with this, you now know that this is in fact backed by neuroscience, and how if you understand your brain a little better, you can make incredible changes and really take charge of your mind. You can retrain your brain to think differently, to think, say, and do things differently. And that includes retraining it to feel happier. And if you really want to take charge and learn how to retrain your brain and even do it in real time and move forward and get something different, then you can book a discovery call with me. And the link is there. You'll get 45 minutes with me to identify the biggest issue that's holding you back, whether it's that feeling of unhappiness, that feeling of meh, and I don't really know why, or it might be something completely unrelated. But you get 45 minutes with me to identify that and come up with a strategy of how to move forward. And when we do that, you can get everything that you ever wanted, but you perhaps didn't even think it was possible. But you get that by learning how to retrain your brain. So the link is there in the box and on the screen. You can book a free 45-minute discovery call with me, and there are still appointments this month available. So go ahead and book one with me and get started on learning how to do this for real. So we've come to the end. I want to thank you for joining us today on today's Lunch and Learn, Unlocking the Power of Hardwiring Happiness. And just a reminder that if you want to learn more about this, you can have a look at Rick Hanson's book, Hardwiring Happiness. And thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed learning all about your brain, and please feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Lunch and Learn. Bye for now.